So hello, welcome back to my ONEYOU channel, and today we bring a new episode where we try to go beyond the noise. That's the whole purpose of this section of this channel, my ONEYOU episodes, where I try to show a little bit what is right on one side and what is right on the other side, because there is this clash of different approaches to reality where people believe they are absolutely right on one side and they think the other side is absolutely wrong. And I tend to think that everybody is right in some aspects and not right in others, and that what we are trying to show here is that because someone doesn't agree in a little part of the other side doesn't need to disqualify the whole of it. And that's unfortunately what's happening in the recent years, or it has been happening throughout history. But I think it's important to find, as I always say, not only the common ground, but to realize that a little part that is wrong doesn't mean that the whole part is wrong. So anyway, let's go straight to the point. So today I want to speak about I want to finish a little bit the Palestine issue, and I want to go into the Ukrainian issue. So regarding Palestine, I mean, now everything seems quiet. Now we are at the end of 2025. There was the peace deal that the Trump administration managed to negotiate with all the different Arab and Muslims parts, so that there is like a relatively solid peace agreement and ceasefire. And now it seems that the news don't show like, the genocide in Palestine, etc. And of course, this is not an easy thing to sort out, but at least now what is very clear is that there has been an agreement with all the different Arab and Muslims parts involved in Palestine. It's Hamas was actually really the problem, and Hamas was ruling almost for the last 20 years Palestine, and it was just becoming a terrorist state, let's face it like that. And of course Israel is it's a democratic country, and they were just trying to protect their people as well. But of course nobody agrees with what Netanyahu was doing, and everybody knows that Netanyahu is kind of a dubious figure. But in the end, what I like about this peace deal is that it brings a way forward, which is basically in an extremely long term, if the conditions are right in Palestine, that it can be self-governed as an independent state. But before all that, there has to be a whole process of rebuilding and of reshaping in a democratic way with civil rights the area. And that is, I mean, I was part of Kosovo, of the rebuilding of Kosovo, and that was a far easier task than what has to happen in Palestine. But at least it's been done, that there is a ceasefire, that there is peace, and that there is a way forward. And it's going to be very difficult, but that's something great. And whoever criticizes the Trump administration for trying to bring peace to the world is just like getting a little bit obfuscated by his manners sometimes. But in the end, what is happening is good for the world. So let's move on. Ukraine, Trump, he thought it was the easiest war to sort out, and it's actually the most difficult. It's been almost a year since the Trump administration arrived in power, and they haven't managed. But now we have a 20 points peace settlement that Ukraine seems to accept, which actually recognizes that the area that was mostly Russian speaking and in terms of culture will be outside of Ukraine, or at least not under the direct ruling of Ukraine. And here, let's face it, everybody is also in the Western world saying that Putin is a threat to the Western world, but nobody talks about how Ukraine was like imposing only language in Ukraine in the area of mostly Russian-speaking people, and that the constitution was sort of negating rights for the Russian population in Ukraine. And a true democratic state has to acknowledge that if you have an area of your state that is mostly populated by a nationality that is not the core essence of your country, you also need to respect that and not impose by force or by law what actually is not possible in a democratic state, and you have to respect the majority of that population in that area. So there was something there, and of course there are other issues like like the energy, rare earth, and a lot of economic issues. But let's not forget that that the huge problem with the 20th century and the 21st century, in a way, is this idea of a nation state, which was what allowed the development, on one hand, of the Western world, with an idea of a sort of centralized nation state, usually with one single language, with one single religion, with one single set of laws, that actually allowed the development. But that also brought all the problems that we have nowadays, where actually the minorities that are majorities in certain areas of those states feel threatened and cannot develop themselves and actually are being oppressed. And that happens everywhere in the world. In every nation state, there are around 200, there are areas that are mostly populated by a minority within the state, but in that area are perhaps majority or very significant, that are not being respected, and that is the huge problem that brings conflicts and wars. And so let's hope that this is acknowledged on what was happening in Ukraine, that there was very important territory, part of the territory that was actually more Russian prone than Ukrainian, and that was somehow being oppressed. And of course the war was not the solution, but now let's see if that is settled, it's acknowledged, and let's see where it goes forward. I'm going to stop it here because I don't want to make my videos too long, but I want to plant the seeds of acknowledging that there is nothing so black or white, that there are more grays and more nuances in every sort of conflict or contentious topic where people really go to either one side or the other, when actually it should be acknowledged that there is something to be acknowledged on one side and on the other, and if those things happen, that they are recognized, and then it's much easier to have an easygoing living in the world. Okay, so more soon, because I feel that 2026 needs a lot of explaining about what can be much better in this world. Okay, ONEYOU, this is your channel Beyond the Noise. Thank you.